Hello and welcome to our podcast. We are The Aliens and I am Alex.
I am Caleb.
I am Max, and today we're each going to be talking about our connections, both historically and currently, with Mexico. And I want to pick on Caleb first and see how he feels.
Pick your brains.
So my brains?
Yeah.
I don't really have brains. So my family history goes all the way back. So my family, part of the Bailly family. So that goes back to Spain, back to Spanish nobility, all the way back to the Reconquista. And my family was really one of the first to colonize. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
To colonize Mexico and to colonize just the surrounding area of Mexico, Texas. So my family has been here since really the very beginning of Spanish influence. So started off in Mexico City, and then there was some shenanigans involving a governor. And eventually my family was actually granted a land grant for Padre Island. So
Land robber.
that's the place where we party in spring break.
That really is. You can thank me for that. You can thank me for that. That's me. It's all me. Yeah, so the reason we don't own the land anymore is actually a very funny story that involves white people, and
That's a story for another
That's
day.
a story for another
how
time.
ironic.
it's quite ironic. We'll get into that later. But so my family has a very rich history within Texas, South Texas, but also Mexico. But personally, I've never been to Mexico, and I almost feel that the connection is just really isn't there. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah. My family has not been noble. As far as I know, they immigrated here as poor people, and then we stayed as poor people.
You plebeian.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. if I look at all the census stuff, it's all been laborer for the last century.
Bro has
But-
not gone up in social class.
No, I haven't. But I mean, I know for sure that both sets of great grandparents had immigrated to here from Mexico around the 20s or so. And despite having barely been here for a century on both sides of my family, there's not really much of a connection to Mexico, which kind of sucks, and I miss it. And I mean, the only reason I have any real connection to Mexico at all is because of the area I live in. If I lived in, I don't know, Nebraska, who lives there?
There's actually nothing there.
But if I lived anywhere else besides like California, New Mexico, Arizona, then I really would not be connected, right? Because I guess the spark has died for Mexico, and I've been making efforts to try to revitalize it, but I mean, it's a bit difficult.
Yeah.
For you though.
Yeah, for me it's a lot different. So my mom is from Mexico and she's indigenous from Mexico. So I have a very different relationship with Mexico than y'all do. I visit every winter or summer, every so often. And so it's a special place to me. I mean, I really enjoy it. My family is all located there, and a lot of the things that I learned growing up, kind of in some like aspects, I see in Mexico, and like the food is a comfort food to me. Although some of the traditions haven't stuck to me as much just because of white father trauma. Shout out James. But it's a bit difficult though, because I don't know the language, and I know it's the same for y'all, because y'all are no Savo kids también. And so I do my best to try to reconnect with my culture as much, because it's like I can see it right in front of me. It's like having like a little carrot dangled in front of you and you're a little pig, like in Minecraft. And so it's like that thing that's just dangling there, and I'm just like trying to scramble to get it back and do my best efforts to reconnect with my culture while being like a first gen Mexican American, and just trying to make it through, and
Yeah.
reconnect. And
Yeah.
I don't know how different it is for y'all, if it feels like a tantalizing fruit that's hanging in front of you.
I mean,
Yeah.
the food's definitely tantalizing, but but like the food, day to day, the food, or until recently, day to day, the food was my only real connection to Mexico.
And bro's making beef stroganoff tonight
Just shut up.
instead of birria.
Whatever. And either way, yeah, the food's the only connection, and it sucks because like there's all this music, and there's all this media, TV shows, books, whatever, that you just can't connect to outside of food, right? Like I see at the mall and I'm like, whoo, I can't. The I'm just like the Aztecs. I mean, I'm not like the Mexica, but I don't know.
You start feeding sometimes.
I do.
It feels the same way for me too, because that connection definitely has been severed in ways with my family, and I don't blame any of my family for like why I can't speak Spanish or why there's not really that much of a connection to Mexico, because really it isn't their fault too. It's a generational issue that goes back to like racism in the United States regarding the language. But that's left me feeling like without a culture in some aspects of my life, because there's just this absence, and it is like that carrot. Like I am that little Minecraft pig. So it is disheartening sometimes, and I put in effort, but to learn the language, to understand, like how you said, the tradition and culture, because there's, as far as translations can go, you'll never get the full picture.
Yeah.
So that's just always been a large barrier. So how does that barrier feel to you?
Very tall, I guess. I don't know how else to word that.
Like a border wall?
The border wall's not that tall, but
it's pretty tall.
Yeah, someone has to visit the border.
Could you jump it?
I don't think you could.
With your point about the generational stripping, I guess, I can tell you that it started with my grandparents, because for them, speaking Spanish in their work life at school was a negative, right? They would get beat at school if they were caught speaking Spanish to each other, right? Because my grandma, my maternal grandmother, grew up on a farm with her 6 siblings, and they all spoke Spanish to each other, and that's what she learned first. But if you had spoken to her before she passed away, she just seemed like any other American, like Hispanic woman, right? Because she knew Spanish and she would speak it, but she never did to me, or really to my mom or aunt or at home, right? Because it was such a bad thing for her. And then that leaked over into my mom, because I mean, she didn't really need it, to be honest, at that time. At that time, it was not a negative, but it wasn't anywhere near as much of a positive as it is today to be bilingual. And so it was just why bother, right? She gets some Spanish classes in high school, whatever. On my dad's side, the same thing with his mom, where she got beat if she spoke Spanish at school and stuff. But then that trauma ended up leaking over into him even more, because if he spoke Spanish or his siblings spoke Spanish, they would get beat at home too. So it, like, for them, my aunt understands Spanish because she has to, because she works with legal people at her job, and they don't know English that well, right? So she needs to know that. But like my dad and my uncle, they don't know, like, because they don't need to, and they were taught, Spanish was introduced to them in a negative light, and they want to, obviously, but they just can't. And for you, it's even more with your mother, right?
Oh yeah. So like one of the things about not being able to, like, me specifically not being able to speak Spanish, is that I can't speak my indigenous dialect, and so my mother speaks only Spanish and the indigenous dialect to my grandparents, and so there wasn't really ever a need for her to speak it with me. And even when she did try, there was always a situation that was going on where it was either my brother or my father prevented her from speaking Spanish to me, so she ended up speaking English. And so it ended up where now I can't speak to my family at all. And the only ways that I can is through the limited Spanish that I've learned here at Kingsville. And so I don't know if it's the same for you at all.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me. The only person in my family that does speak Spanish, really, because everyone's kind of picked up on it a little bit just by living in Texas, but never to a fluent degree. The only person that does is my great-grandmother. And that connection to the Baí side of the family was through my great-grandpa. But he passed before I could ever really speak to him. or when I knew of all the roots. So the only person that would know is her, and that connection. She's getting older. Her English is kind of fading as she gets old. So it's just that barrier to learning my own history and learning the old traditions and culture and history of my own family is kind of barred from me in that sense. It's a very high barrier, and it's disheartening, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, my family's been in Texas long enough, specifically, where, thankfully, debatably, thankfully, that's not like a problem that we deal with. But it, with that, it's not a problem in my family, but it's a problem in everything else, because now I want to know my culture and my history, right? Not outside of Texas, outside of the U.S., and I just can't figure it out, right? Like the U.S. records can only take me so far,
Mm-hmm.
and then I try and look through the Mexican records, and I don't know what I'm reading. I just can't read it, and it sucks because it's not only the historical stuff, it's stuff from right now. Like I
Mhm.
love Tejano music. My uncle's a very prolific Tejano musician, local Tejano musician, and whenever he played, I would be there when I don't know, like at 8 years old, which was probably a bad idea because I didn't have earplugs. But the singer would sing the songs they would play, and I'd have no idea. I'd just be sitting there, and I probably wouldn't have even if I understood Spanish as an 8-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
But like I'll listen to Tejano radio now, right? And the songs are pretty, but I don't know what it's talking about, and I don't have that deep of a connection with it as compared to like an American song that I do understand, right? Because music, you form connections with it,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that connection's through the words. Without words, it's very difficult, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I also try to connect to Mexico, back to Mexico, with my music taste as well. I have a lot of songs that I listen to that are in Spanish or like pop, like trending right now. And I do have that like difficulty of understanding what they're saying, and it ends up, what I have to do is translate the songs or find a translation already done, and then that's how I connect with it, and then starting to repeat it over and over again, so then I can start understanding the words more and more. I mean, it's definitely disheartening, but it's not something that I'm gonna let it try to stop me in some kind of aspect or way, because it's a deep scar within me that I'm like that I'm not connected with my culture as much. And so whenever I was in high school, I made it an effort to reconnect with my culture. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why I came here to Temuque and I hang around the Masias a lot, because I want to reconnect with my culture, and it's important to me that I don't abandon it in a way. And
Mhm.
so I don't know if it's um like it feels like a bit wrong in some aspects, because it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're not really like fully Mexican. You're like Mexican American, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like it feels a little wrong trying to reconnect with it at times, but it's like this is my culture at the end of the day. And so,
Well, I
Mhm.
mean, you are Mexican. You're a Mexican citizen.
well, yeah, I'm a
That's
Mexican
true.
citizen, but like whenever someone looks at me, no one's gonna see that, and whenever they look at us, no one's gonna see that, right?
Maybe
And
so.
so it's like I feel like I'm putting on a bit of a costume at times with learning my own culture.
Yeah. I had a conversation one time with a friend about being Mexican American, I guess. And like I was just talking to them, right? But then they were like, "Well, don't you see yourself as Mexican American?" And I just kind of sat there like, "Well, ethnically, sure. Like ethnically, yes, I definitely am. I'm not going to sit here and deny it. But like culturally, I couldn't sit like I was sat there and I was like, well, I don't really do anything that people in Mexico do. I don't celebrate Dia de los Muertos, so any Mexican holidays, the
Mhm.
Three Kings Day, anything like that. I don't dress like them. I don't listen to their music. I don't watch their movies. I don't do anything like that, which made me feel. It gave me imposter syndrome, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the same boat with you. When I was younger, I was a lot whiter than I am now.
How'd
So
you do that?
I don't know how I did that. It could be the jaundice. I don't really know. It could be. I don't really know.
He
There hasn't-
evolved like a little Pokemon type.
Yeah, like a little Pokemon. Just over time, like "Ooh, the power of the sun. So, I look like a little white kid. Even in the old photos of me, I have like one on my door. You've seen it before.
Yeah, you're kind of you're glowing.
Like I'm white. Like I look white. So I was always told I was always just seen like another white kid, and it's just a little white boy.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the connection with the tradition, just like you, Max. Like the culture, the music, I couldn't connect with it. Just that barrier of language, and just the absence in my life of it. It makes me still to this day feel like an imposter.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like I'm not where I should be, or that maybe this is too much for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I will be scrolling on my feed sometimes, and I will see a meme in Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be an F1 meme about Checo, right?
Mongolian F4.
Mongolian
F4.
F4.
Used to be running around a track.
but like I'll sit there and it's in Spanish, and sometimes I'll get the words because it's just like a single word that I definitely know, right? But then other times it's a full-on paragraph, like those post-irony memes where you're just reading the entire thing, and I'm just kind of sat there like, what's funny, right?
Yeah. I think it's another aspect to it is it's not only hard to connect with old tradition and old culture, but it's also hard to connect with newer culture
Yeah.
and newer wave that's in Spanish, because the internet's a wondrous place where a lot of wonderful people can say a lot of wonderful things, you know.
Yeah.
Millions must live.
Millions must live, you know. So there's a lot of, especially now as I think the internet ages, there's more of a Spanish influence, especially as algorithms grow, and then they check my location and they're like, oh my god, he's on the border. This guy speaks Spanish. But it's hard to connect with those memes and just like new wave culture, because Mexico has started to enter kind of more like an emo/goth phase.
Girl, it's been there.
It's been there, but oh
It's
my
been
You're not
god,
paying
it's
attention.
popping off. It's popping off
They've
even
been
more
popping
lately.
off.
It's popping off, and I love that. I love that subculture of like emo, goth, and punk.
We can tell.
Yeah, you can tell because I have a Snoopy sweater on. You can really tell. But it's hard for me to connect to these, cultural waves, and it is what it is.
Yeah. No, when I was younger, my Spanish speaking friends, they would watch, I don't know, I guess they would somehow have access to like Mexican cartoons. I don't know if Telemundo or Televisión would have them.
It's via Televisión.
Okay, well, there you go.
Was it Universal? I don't. Is that?
Either way, my point being, they would watch these cartoons at home, right? And then just in English, they would make little like jokes with each other about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why don't I know that? Why am I not able to know that? Right? Because like I remember one time I tried watching some stupid cartoon. It wasn't Pacoyo. I love Pacoyo, but it wasn't that.
Shout out.
It was something else. I can't even remember at the moment on Televisión. And I was just like, well, cool. The characters are moving around, and that was fun. Oh, what was it? I don't think it was Televisión. It was that puppet guy. The red puppet character.
31 minutos.
I've never seen it.
It's 31 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen that? It's like a red little puppet guy, and he's like a rabbit. And
I've seen it.
yes,
There
you've
it is.
definitely seen him. It's a Chilean children's show,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very popular in Mexico. Like it's on like Cartoon Network for them and stuff like that. Like it's one of the big dogs of like their children entertainment. But what were you going on about it?
Just that like I felt left out because I didn't know what they were like. I didn't know what they were talking about. I figured it out, and I realized it was in Spanish and popular in Mexico, and that's why they knew about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go and watch it, and it's just like, well, shit. I don't like. I don't know. It was alienating, to say the least.
Growing up, as you get older and experience more, how does that alienation feel today?
Worse, like a lot worse, because when I was younger, it was just like a thing of, darn, I don't get that reference. Maybe next time,
Maybe I'm just
Maybe
stupid.
next time.
right? But now it's like, well, maybe you should have known that. Maybe you should have watched more of that, right?
Mhm.
Because we're history nerds. We enjoy looking back.
Mhm.
And while it's nothing about wanting to change the past, like I don't blame anyone for me not knowing Spanish, and I'm not like, stupid 8-year-old, why didn't you learn it? It's like, well, like no.
I'm thinking of the Jimmy Neutron like COD. Not is it COD or is it Siege? Where it's
Is
like
it
it's like
the-
No, save me.
Either way,
Either way.
it's just the thing of, well, I should know that now. Like I should know more things. Like I'll see the little characters outside in the Masi, and it's just like, who are they? What are they from? Right? Or like what are my friends talking about? And it's worse now because I'm actually aware of things.
Mhm.
Like I feel like Mexican politics can be important a lot,
Mhm.
or it is important a lot because
It's
they're
important,
our
yeah.
neighbor, right? And I want to know more, but
but
like
all the sources are
all
in
this all the
most of
good all the
yeah.
good sources that I could actually get a lot of info out of are in Spanish. There's not, like, AP will sometimes talk about it, right? But there's nothing that I'm able to read directly because I don't know, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. No, the one thing that I'm very like glad about, at least in this age, is the internet, because it's made a lot of things like a lot more accessible to learn about. Like, I mean, a lot of the things that I know about Mexico, like 31 minutes, is through like TikTok or Instagram. Turn your goddamn
Yeah, yeah.
notifications
Actually,
off.
I think that
You
little
need a liver break?
notification might be time for a liver break. Sorry,
be
if I
right
sit down
back.
for too long, my liver starts to hurt. So
We'll be back.
we'll be right
We'll
back
be
from our liver
back.
break. All right, I am sorry for the liver break. We're right back with Alex.
Yeah, so before I was rudely interrupted by your stupid phone notification.
I'm so sorry.
Do not be sorry. I was talking. Don't look at me like that. I was talking about the internet and how I'm very grateful for it being around, because it's made things a lot more accessible for me. So that's the reason why I know about 31 minutes, and that's how I know about oh my god, certain Mexican politics and what policies are floating around, and even just like current meme culture and other cultures, subcultures that are going on. Although those, like, the internet is very helpful, it's not like fully helpful, as it's not like a means of immersion, because I mean, you're scrolling, you're doom scrolling for an hour, and you maybe get like 5 minutes of like Spanish content, or at least I do, like maybe
Mhm.
like 5 minutes of Spanish content, and so it doesn't like immerse you at all in the culture. And it's, I mean, I want to be more immersed, and it's just difficult to find spaces that I'm able to immerse myself in. And Mossy has been one of them. So I don't know how y'all feel about like being
I
here
think-
in Mossy and stuff. Like, how much more immersed do you feel, or how much more do you think you've learned because of it?
I feel like I've learned a lot more from Masi. Definitely a lot more than I ever would have if I would have gone anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the best parts about coming to Kingsville, is that I'm able to immerse myself in my culture at least. I don't think I would have gotten that anywhere else. Nowhere
Probably
else would I've been able to experience what I've experienced here. But even though I do get that immersion, I do get that experience, and I love the experience, it is kind of embarrassing sometimes when I don't fully understand, or that when my friends are having conversations in Spanish, I just don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing to have to ask them to translate it for me,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
even once.
Because it feels like you're asking them to speak in English,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
it feels.
When it's like, no, I just genuinely don't know what you're like saying, and I'm trying to also learn as well.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the language for me, sometimes I get it. Like, it comes in and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what it means. Do context clues, Don't you laugh at me. Their context.
Look here, you little Italian man. Don't laugh at him.
Hey, he's Italian.
I am Italian.
Oh, well.
I'm sorry. So, like, when they talk, sometimes I get it, context clues, or just whatever Spanish I do know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always hard for me to translate and speak it. Once it comes into my brain, and then I figure out how to actually say it, the conversation has passed, and it just feels like oh, the time has passed. You wouldn't say something once a conversation's already 10 minutes out or 5 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you have any experience like that, Max? How has that made you feel?
I mean, it's probably for the better that I'm here, right? Or even just surrounded by Spanish speaking people, because without that I probably wouldn't have learned anything about Spanish, right? Or at least as much as I have, because well, the Spanish speaking classes here are fine. They're okay.
Don't lie.
It's I have to be politically correct.
No, you don't.
They're yes, I do. They're
Bad.
okay. They're not as good as actually being around like people who speak Spanish, right? Or like seeing something like watching Spanish TV, right? That you just pick up way more things through hearing people speak, right? I've picked up more Spanish in the last 3 months than I have in like 5 years of off and on learning Spanish, just because people are speaking it in front of me and I actually understand it. And I do feel bad when I have to like force, because when you're bilingual, for a lot of people, when you're bilingual, you have to like literally switch how you're thinking, right? And I feel bad, or like actively translate it in your head. And I do feel bad when I do that, but I go back and I realize, well, I mean, I'm learning. It's a thing of, I learned this and then I'm able to better understand what they're talking about. And then that leads to, I'm better able to understand the references. And then I can actually get, be more in my own culture.
No, and like, I know like the feeling of having to do those translations. Like, I understand both of y'all. And it's very disheartening whenever we have like first the native speakers of Spanish like around us, and they'll like say stuff like, oh, because there was a specific situation that happened where they had told me, I think Caleb understands me in Spanish more than you do, referring to me, Alex. And it just made me feel like very disheartened. Like I was attempting to learn Spanish, and yet someone perceived me as not understanding them at all, or to like a certain extent. And it like definitely like it hurt. It like some like, I know sometimes the thing is like, oh, like, well, whatever, just like let it pass you or whatever, but it doesn't. It hurts, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, you shouldn't know, shouldn't you, right? And so I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way, that there's a sense of kind of judgment sometimes. Like I've had people tell me like, oh, you should learn Spanish. Like it's almost as if they think that I'm not trying at all.
Yeah.
And it is hard as you get older. It's harder. I'm having issues with my brain right now to where it's hard for me to think at all. So it's definitely kind of a pressure. Just more of like a pressure. Living in South Texas, I think it's overall a pressure.
Yeah.
Living near the border, it's not just a pressure from the Mossy. I don't want to put that on anybody.
Oh, no.
Definitely not. But it's just a pressure living in South Texas, living close to the border, where people expect you to know Spanish.
Yeah.
And it's a stigma to not know. Like one time I was at work, when I worked for the city, and a man came in. He was an older man, probably like 65, probably going in on 70. And he told me, he only spoke Spanish. He told me in Spanish. I picked it up. I knew exactly what he told me. He needed to go see benefits to renew something for his kid, whatever, because his kid was turning 25, blah, 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 blah. And I can't speak Spanish back. Like I don't feel confident enough. I didn't want to say something that could be wrong. So I needed to double check. So I told him, yo no hablo español, and then he looked at me. And I think it's because I got the conjugation right that kind of set him off.
Oh, yeah.
Because I got the conjugation right. So he looked at me and he gave me a Let's see if you can see with my hair.
Oh.
He's like, you don't speak Spanish?
Ooh,
Oh.
you
You
pleb.
you plebeian scum?
You
don't-
American scum.
You Americanized scum. I just didn't feel confident in myself to make sure that he was gonna get the service that he needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get my other coworker, whatever. He was a nice guy. I don't blame him for anything. I don't think he meant anything by it.
No.
But it's just that there is that pressure, especially as you get older,
Mm-hmm.
to know Spanish.
Yeah, and it's different from like being a white transplant here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than having been born here and raised here and being a Mexican American kid.
Mhm.
Because I feel like No Sabo has like a stigma kind of where it's like, well, you are Mexican American.
Like, why don't you know? the
Why don't
language?
you know?
No, I definitely feel that. Like, I feel like it's a lot worse for me a little bit because my mom is directly from Mexico. My family is directly from Mexico. And it's like, well, why don't you know? Right? And I feel like a lot more people need to talk about like their a lot more people need to talk about it, but a lot more people need to understand a lot of the time why there's no sabos is because usually situational workings that are going on in their family or with themselves that they're just not able to learn it or they weren't able to grow up with it properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to give a quick explanation of what no sabo means?
Yeah, so no sabo is saber is the word for no or like I don't know, right? So that's what the word is supposed to intend to mean, and that's usually what kids that don't know Spanish will say, like I don't know, no sabo, right? Pero the word to use is because saber is also a irregular verb, and so the proper way of saying it would be no sé. So it's kind of put on upon these kids like, oh, you're a no sabo. So it's double making fun of them because it's
more
like
of like
I don't know and you actually don't know
Yeah.
because you fucked up the conjugation.
So
Yeah.
now it's more of like a derogatory term than just a you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
don't know. It can be challenging because I didn't even know that I was a No Sabo kid. Like I didn't know that was a term
Mhm.
until I came here, and then I kept hearing it, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" I thought it was something to do with the fact that I'm Mexican American, but like I'm American,
Mhm.
not like like actually Mexican American. I thought that like it just applies to American kids, like American born kids. But it feels worse when you realize, oh, it's because you just don't know how to speak a language you had no choice about. Despite that, I'm trying to break it, right? Because with things like, I don't know, Focodigo,
Mhm.
I didn't know that was a thing until I came here, right? It's when you try, it feels better, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
It definitely does feel better to learn
Mm-hmm.
and just figure out different aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
That's the best part. And speaking of figuring out different aspects of yourself and connecting back to Mexico, we're having the Mexico trip in the summer soon.
We are.
We are. So how do you guys feel about that? Any like concerns, or are you excited?
Concerns? Well, no, for you, not.
No,
But-
I love Mexico.
But like for me, it's not like it's not concerns. It's just a thing of expectation, because I've told you all this, but like the reason I enjoyed history in the first place is because it's something that Mexican history is what my dad would tell me about when I was like 5, 6, 7,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just sitting there with him, right? Yeah, I literally was like, that's cool. Those Aztec guys sound cool. What happened to them? He didn't tell me.
I happen.
But like this is a full loop thing for me of like, I learned about this before and I lost it because I like ended up learning more about like American political history, right? Like I would say I'm more on the political side of history, right? Which, fine.
But are
But-
you on the right side of history?
No, but like it's a full loop thing for me, right? Because now I'm going back to not just my history major roots. This is my roots. This is me reconnecting to a culture that I lost no fault of my own, but it's lost to me, right? It's foreign when I feel like it shouldn't be, and now it won't be,
Yeah.
which is nice.
No, I'm definitely very excited to go to Mexico. I've already been a couple times, but this is Mexico City. This is on a different level and scale. I mean, Mexico City is one of the biggest cities in the world, and so I'm very excited to see. I've been to also a couple of the historical sites in Mexico, but I've never been to like the main attractions, and so I'm very excited. But not only that, but to see how different things are compared to my own indigenous ways, because I mean Mexico is a very broad like ethnic country as well as the United States is too, but I'm excited to see how different it is, because I know whenever I go to Valles that usually I'm a pretty white person there, and I'm taller than everyone as well,
Which is crazy. Because you're short.
Yeah,
I
you're
am
sh-
5'2",
you're
and
stupid.
I'm taller than most of my cousins, all my cousins actually, except like the male ones. But even then, I also am like on par with them. But it's just I'm excited to see that difference, and I know that the language is definitely gonna be a thing, because you're not gonna be able to fully immerse yourself with what's going on. And what they're probably gonna be telling us as well. Like we're gonna have someone like probably translate a little bit for us, but I'm not gonna let that stop me from having a good time and even like try practicing Spanish as well and seeing what I can do with it when I'm forced to interact.
In a loving way.
Loving.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for it. Like I'm kind of in the same boat as Max, that my family has a deep history and connection to Mexico, as I said earlier. So yeah, sorry about that. You know.
Are you?
So
Get this guy out of here.
no.
Get out!
So I'm very excited to see that side of my family, that side of my history. But you know, also there's that where language always creeps its way in, you know, and says hi, and like it touches you on the back and you get scared and
Touches you?
it touches me.
You jump,
want
you're
to
like,
talk
"Ah!"
about that, Caleb?
No, that's a different
You
podcast
being diddled
topic.
with?
It's different.
It's a different podcast topic. It's different. So you know that it always is kind of a fear.
Subscribe to our Patreon to hear what happened to Caleb.
Yeah, it's like $16. That's the starter tier. But that language, it is always kind of a little bit of a fear because, like as you said, you can't really fully immerse yourself if you don't know the language. But also to know the language, you have to fully immerse yourself. So there's that.
I love double-edged swords.
I love double-edged swords.
But
Yes.
I mean, with the language will come the culture, and with the culture will come the language.
No, and they're
Exactly.
so understanding down there, like truly, like I mean, with my own family, like we communicate even whenever they don't know how to like a word of what I'm saying, and I might not know a word of what they're saying, but there's still like that connection there where it's like, oh, I know exactly what is going on right now. That's silly.
Yeah, so I'm definitely gonna try to learn a bit more Spanish before I go.
Yeah.
There's like, boot up Duolingo. Actually, the colors back here, they aren't for Mexico. They're for the Duolingo bird.
He
Yeah.
died.
Rest in peace.
The red is for his blood because
Yeah,
he
the
died.
We need to watch 31 Minutes. Trust.
We do.
I've
Okay.
watched a couple of the episodes. They're so funny.
Well, I did enjoy it when I watched it. I was
Dude,
just like,
they're
I just
so
felt silly.
silly.
Yeah.
Well, now that you have an adult brain,
Yeah.
not really, because you have to be 25.
Oh,
You little
A more adult brain.
a more adult brain. You're still a little bit of like a little bit of gravy in there.
Well, I think us being adults makes it more satisfying when we learn these things.
It's definitely.
Because like as a kid, it's just like, oh well, it's there.
I think
Whatever.
you don't learn to appreciate what
You
what
don't
you've
learn to
learned.
appreciate it. And then maybe I would have taken it for granted if I had known before, right?
Yeah.
But now, I won't take it for granted because this has been missing for so long, and I want it. I want it really bad.
I want it. I want it. Give it to me.
That.
Whoa. Whoa there.
Give it to me. I'm a colonizer.
Oh, whoa.
I love colonizing, but
I love them savages, and they love me too.
Maybe we should end it up there.
I think this is our second liver brick and our final ending. So thank you. We are the aliens. I'm Caleb.
I'm Max.
I'm Alex the Savage.
All right. Well.
Well,
Goodbye.